There are times when creating your programs, you would want to keep track of a counter when iterating over objects. There are a number of ways to do that in Python, but in this tutorial, I want to talk about the enumerate function in Python. Hey guys, my name is Gomez, and on this channel, I talk about programming and more especially Python. The enumerate function helps you keep track of a counter when iterating over your object, but it also gives you the value that you are iterating over during that time. So for example, the journal, when we have a for loop in Python, this is what it looks like. So for example, we have a list object, so it'll just be a list of names, gems. So this is a list of names. We can iterate over this object using a for loop in a simple way. So I'll just say in name, in names, and then I'll just print name. So if I print this, you see that I have iterated over the object and I have all the names listed down. So there are times when you would want to keep track either of the index of that item in the list, or you would just want to keep a counter, and with a counter you can specify the starting point. There are a number of ways to do that, but I want to talk about the enumerate function first. So to keep track of the counter, you would use the enumerate function. That is my favorite function when I want to keep track of a counter for whatsoever reason. So this is how you would do it. So it'll be for name in enumerate, and you provide it an object. So the enumerate function takes in an object, and then it provides another object, but with an object with tuples, so much so that if we iterate over that object, we get a tuple of the value of the index together with the value. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So for name in enumerate, and then I'll just say names. If I print name, it gives me a tuple. So you can see that the tuple contains the index together with the value. So your question might be, but how are we gonna fetch the index together with the values? There are a number of ways I can do this. I can say name 0 and then comma name 1. This was work. Okay, so you can see 0, Joe, Jen, James. But using unpacking in Python, we can simplify the process. So what do I mean when I say unpacking? For example, if you have a tuple in Python, okay, you can unpack it and get value by value. So for example, let's say I have this tuple. I'll just call it x and say 1, comma, let's say 3. So this is a tuple. I can unpack it. It's also called destructuring, if you want to call it that, but I'll just call it unpacking. So if I do this and say x, you see that it's the same tuple, but I can get value by providing the same amount of values that or items that are in this tuple. So if I say x, comma y, you see that now x takes the value of 1 and y will take the value of 3. So it's called unpacking. I can do the same thing with the enumerate function. So what I'll do is, instead of saying name and giving it the index, I'll just say name. I'll just say counter for the index, comma the value. Okay, so if I print counter here, if I print counter, it has to give me the counter, and then if I print the value, it has to give me the other value. It'll basically print the same thing, but I'm just showing you the simplest way of doing it and the recommended way of doing it. Okay, so you see that's the same thing. The good thing about the enumerate function is you can provide a starting point. So by default, the starting point is 0. So it starts with 0. And I think you know why that is the case. It's because Python is a zero-based index, uses the zero-based indexing, and the first element of an object is at index 0. That's why the starting point here is 0. But for some reason you would want to start your index, if you're just counting, maybe you just want to get the exact count of the number of objects or the exact position of that particular, let's say, list item. You would want to start maybe from 1. So I can say, okay, the starting point should be 1. Okay, so if I do this, it won't start from 0, it will start from 1. So that's the great thing about the enumerate function. Now you know how you can write the enumerate function. But it's also good for you to know what else you can do to keep track of the counter. I'll show you two methods. Okay, so the first method is create a counter of your own. So you would say counter and provide it the starting point and say for name in names, and I would print first of all counter and then comma name. This should also work as the above code, but it doesn't. The question would be why? Okay, so when you're creating a counter, you want to keep track of a counter of your own, you have to always remember to increment that counter. So to solve this, I'll just go down here and say counter equals counter plus 1. If I do this, you see that now I have my counter and it's incrementing each and every time. I can also specify the starting point. So if I do this, you'll see that it works as the above code. Another way of doing this, method number 2, is to use the range function together with the length function. Let's see how we can do that. So it would be for, now I won't start with name, I will start with x because now this is the counter. So it would be for x in range of, so basically what the range function does is it gives us a range starting from 0 to the input minus 1. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So if the input is 5 and I say print x, it has to give me numbers from 0 to 4 because it's input minus 1. Let's see. Okay, so you see this is 4. If I put 6, this is 5. The second function that we are going to use is the length function because we want to get the length of the list or the object. So length of names is 3. So basically we want this number. So it will start from basically 0 to 2. Okay, so if I do this, length names, and then I'll print x, which is our counter. Let me just call it counter just to simplify things. And here it will be counter, comma. And one more thing we have to do, now we have to fetch the value by using the index or the counter. So I'll just say counter. So if I do this, it has to print the same thing. Basically, we are using it to get the counter, to keep track of the counter, but also to get the names. Okay, guys, this is all I had for this tutorial. I hope you liked it. If you liked the tutorial, please hit the subscribe button and the like button just to help me and motivate me to do more of these tutorials. Until next time, peace.